stand right now. Everything is crashing down, and I wonder where you are. Try to find the words to pray, I don't always know what to say, but you're the one that hears my heart. Even though I don't know what your plan is, I know you make beauty from these ashes. I've seen joy and I've seen pain. On my knees I call your name. Here's my broken hallelujah. There's nothing left to hold on to. I raise these empty hands to you. Here's my broken, here's my broken hallelujah. 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 Things that have brought me here, know the story of every tear. You've been here from the very start. Even though I don't know what your plan is, I know you make beauty from these ashes. I've seen joy and I've seen pain. On my knees I call your name. Here's my broken hallelujah. There's nothing left to hold on to. I raise these empty hands to you. Here's my broken, here's my broken hallelujah. 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 When all is taken away, don't let my heart be changed. Let me always sing hallelujah. Oh, when I feel afraid, don't let my heart be erased. Let me always sing. Let me always sing hallelujah. 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 On behalf of the family, I would like to welcome and thank you all as we gather to remember and celebrate the life of Brian this morning. Just a few notes on our service. There will be time for singing that you are invited to sing along if you would choose. There will also be a time of sharing. And as I sat with the family earlier this week, I said the number one fear in America isn't death, it's speaking in public. From the little I got to know Brian and then what I know of his family, And what I've heard of this last week, there are many, many stories out there, and we would invite you during that time to stand, come here and share, or stand where you are. We have a wireless mic that we can bring around. We do have two people who are going to speak at the beginning of that service. Also, following our service, there will be a meal for anyone who would like to join us. If you go back through this hallway and just keep walking out through our gym, it will be in that space. So all are welcome to be part of that as well. We gather together today to talk about something that usually evokes silence. Silence of shock, pain, terror, and loss. We gather to stand in solidarity about something that often keeps people isolated in despair, grief, or guilt. We gather to find hope together that we perhaps struggle to find alone. God of hope, we come to you in shock and grief and confusion of heart. Help us to seek peace in the knowledge of your loving mercy to all your children. And give us light to guide us out of our darkness and into the assurance of your love in Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let us pray. God of grace and glory, we remember before you today our brother Brian. We thank you for giving him to us to know and to love as a companion in our pilgrimage on earth. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us your aid so that we may see in death the gate to eternal life, that we may continue our course on earth in confidence until, by your call, we are reunited with those who have gone before us. Through your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Eileen said that there would be a lot of people here today who did not know that she sang. So she wanted me to let you know that she's been singing with our praise team since 2011. So the songs we're doing today are nothing that she just learned in the past week. The metaphor was fit like an old shoe, a well-worn shoe. A nice well-worn shoe, not like a muddy.
There's a peace I've come to know, though my heart and flesh may fail. There's an anchor for my soul. I can say it is well. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when he calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will rise. There's a day that's drawing near when this darkness breaks to light, and the shadows disappear, and my faith shall be my eyes. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when he calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will rise. And I hear the voice of many angels sing, worthy is the Lamb. And I hear the cry of every longing heart, worthy is the Lamb. And I hear the voice of many angels sing, worthy is the Lamb. And I hear the cry of every longing heart, worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. I will rise when he calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will rise. I will rise.
The readings for today were chosen by the family, and so we will hear now the poem, I Can't Stay.
I can't stay. I can't stay, Mother. I love you, but I wasn't born to please you. I wasn't born to make you happy or to give your life meaning. I wasn't born to ride underneath your wings like an unhatched egg. I can't stay, teacher. I wasn't born to be put in your boxes, to think along your lines or to memorize your facts. I was born to think independently. I can't stay, my love. I wasn't born to satisfy your needs, to take care of you, or to hide in your arms. I wasn't born to make myself smaller or to be taken for granted. I can't stay, boss. I wasn't born to make money for others. I wasn't born to follow orders or to repeat the same day over and over again. I wasn't born for boredom. I can't stay, master. I wasn't born to follow your ideas of what truth is or to live according to your dogmas. I was born to find my own truth and to make my own rules. I was born to meet life full on, to get lost on Indian trains, to be seduced by dangerous women, to meet different faces, places, and culture, to be out in the jungle all night, to run with the wolves, to be swept off my feet, to be taken by storm, to be heartbroken, devastated, stunned, shocked, lost, thrown into the deep. I was born to get my hands dirty, to get sand in my mouth, mud on my clothes, thorns under my feet. I was born to jump into the abyss. I was born to meet aliens, to do rituals, to be cracked open to ceremony, to go beyond time and space, to welcome magic, to totally lose myself. I was born to feel everything. to taste everything, the bitter taste of sorrow, the foul taste of deceit, the sweet taste of love. I was born to learn how to handle change gracefully. I was born to know the truth and to learn how to fly. I was born to learn how to speak the language of love, how to unchain my heart, how to shed everything, to let go of all expectations. I was born to learn how to feel, to lose everything except for what really matters. I was born to live a life that would strip away everything that wasn't real, that wasn't true, that wasn't me. I am a phoenix. I am born to spread my wings and fly towards the sun, to burn up and turn to ashes, to fall down to the earth and rise up again. I was born to be free, and therefore I can't stay.
This is from Isaiah 40:28-31. Have you not known, have you not heard? The Lord is everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down. You know when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path, my lying down. You're acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you're there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there, your hand shall lead me, and your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall come over me, and the light around me become night. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day. For darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb, and I praise you. For I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know very well. My frame is not hidden from you. When I was being made in the secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Psalm 139, 1-50.
Romans 8:31 through 35, 37 through 39. What then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who is against us? He who did not withhold his own son, but gave him up for all of us, will he not with him also give us everything else? Who will bring any charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is to condemn? It is Christ Jesus who died, yes, who was raised, who was at the right hand of God, who indeed intercedes for us. Who will separate us from the love of Christ? Will hardship or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels nor rulers, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord.
This time I've invite his coach forward to share.
For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Matt Davis, and I was Brian's teacher and high school volleyball coach. When Brian's mom asked me to say a few words, I will admit that I didn't know if I would be up to the task, and I'm still not sure. Brian was a larger-than-life personality, and it's hard to capture him in just a few minutes, as all of you know. So my hope here today is that I can honor him and his life by sharing just a few memories from one of the most unforgettable nights of my coaching career. Our team was playing in the county championship match against Wilson. You may boo if you want to say words. It was the 5th game, and Brian was going back to serve. And if we're being honest with ourselves, we were never entirely sure what was going to happen when he went back to that line. But on this night, and in this moment, the biggest moment of his career as a high school athlete, Brian shined. He rattled off 7 or 8 points in a row. We built up a huge lead, and I remember thinking to myself how nice it was that my assistant coach Bart and I could sit back and just watch these kids do what they loved to do. The match ends, we win, the kids in the stands go crazy, a lot of you might have been there, and our team piles on top of each other in the middle of the court. There's actually a picture of it out there, and it's an awesome picture and an awesome memory. After the match, the guys line up, and I get to place the medal around their neck, and they get to Brian, and it turns out he's a little taller than me, a little bit. So he bends down, and I place the medal over his head, which was very sweaty, and before I know it, he lifts me up 2 feet off the ground, spins me around like I was like a 3-year-old, and just plops me back down. And for people that were there, and if you probably picture this moment, he was so happy. I mean, it was incredible, incredible. Anyone else, I would have been a little upset, but I was good with it. As folks in this room know better than anyone, very few people could feel joy as deeply as Brian felt it. He had this way of just lighting up. And that night he was just so proud of everything, proud of himself, of his teammates, of everything they had gone through to win that match. But that tradition of hard work and dedication and winning that he and his teammates started that year, that wasn't the most important legacy that they left behind after that match. When I found out last week about Brian passing, I went back and found the old pictures and newspaper clippings from that night, and I reread the article, which is out there. The article ended with a quote. Give me a minute here. From his teammate Andrew. And it said, "This team is a family. There's no way anything is ever tearing us apart." I promised I wouldn't do this kind of thing. Has ended every practice and match. Not with 1-2-3 team, not with 1-2-3 Mifflin, not with 1-2-3 win, but with a 1-2-3 family. And we talk about families. We talk about that families aren't simple, families aren't easy. Sometimes you don't like each other. But through it all, you know that there's something else binding you together, something bigger than the day-to-day drama of school and friends and work. And that group of guys had that. Anyone that was around back then knows that Brian and I certainly didn't always see eye to eye. But if you needed him, he always had your back. And that was our definition of family. Brian fought through a lot in his life, and not every decision that he made was perfect. But through it all, there's one thing that I can feel I can look back and say with certainty, and that is that Brian very much wanted to be good. He wanted to get things right for his friends that are here, his teammates, his family. And when I think about that, I can remember this one specific moment, and it didn't seem like a special moment at the time, but I can remember one year we had a practice on the morning of Good Friday. Thank you. So we're coming up on 8 o'clock. They're supposed to be there a few minutes before that. And as happens from time to time, everyone starts looking around going, "Where's Beyer? Where's Beyer?" And I can hear this sort of percolating through everybody. So I remember I took one of the kids' phones that has a number, I called him. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but it essentially was like, "I forgot. I overslept. The thing is, I don't have my stuff. Well, I probably won't I don't have a ride. I'm not going to be on time. I should have." And he went through this list. And I just sort of like shook my head and said, "Okay, And eventually there was applause. And I hear him say, "Okay, coach, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And he was there, and that was it. That was him. He wanted to do it right, and if you just waited long enough, he would. And he showed up to that practice. He came in, looked me in the eyes, apologized, ran his laps, jumped into practice. did everything he was supposed to do. He made it right, and that's what he wanted to do. I'll finish by observing that most relationships we value and care about, we do so because they make our lives easier. Our friends are fun to hang out with, our parents and grandparents take care of us, our teachers, our coworkers. They're all there to make our lives easier. And I think it's fair to say, Brian did not always make our lives easier. But he was a part of our lives to make them easier. Because the truly special people don't make our lives easier. They come into our lives to make them richer and fuller and deeper. And that's what he did, and that's what we'll miss. So I've read a lot of different places how important volleyball was to Brian over the last couple days, and I just want to make sure everyone knows Brian was important to volleyball. So, thank you.
Eileen asked me to try to describe what it's like to have bipolar. My mom had bipolar. My daughter has bipolar disorder. So I've been around it since conception. And I jumped into it when my daughter was diagnosed. I learned everything I could possibly learn about it. I studied the medication, wrote a book. I did everything I possibly could. So, do I know a lot about bipolar disorder? I know more than most people, really. It's not an ego thing, because I really know squat about bipolar disorder. Most people don't know about it. If you find somebody that says they know all about bipolar disorder, they're lying or delusional, one or the other. So I'm going to try to explain it as quickly as I can. Not as quickly, but as succinctly as I can. Your brain develops from the back to the front, right? So when you're born, the back part is online. I call it the mammal part. We're little puppy dogs when we're born. And God makes us cute so that nobody hurts us, see? And then, around 4 or 5, the soft spot, that develops into your computer, your mind, your calculator, whatever you want to call it, your thinker, right? You can think when you're 2, but you don't remember it. Around 4 or 5, you can form a subject and predicate. And as soon as you can do that, you get downloaded with beliefs and rules. And you get them from mom, dad, church, school, Sesame Street, your peers. It all just goes in there. We're little sponges. We pick up everything. Right? So you don't really get a mind of your own until you're around 12 or so. This part kicks in, the front part. It's called the prefrontal lobe. It's not a thinking part of the brain. It's an awareness part of the brain. You become more aware of your surroundings. That's why when you push a shopping cart down in the supermarket and a little kid standing in front of it, you'll probably have to tell them to move because they're kind of oblivious. An adult would probably sense your presence and move out of the way. So this prefrontal lobe is pretty important. It helps you to see the bigger picture of things. It's your filter. Little kids don't have filters. If they're thinking something, they're probably saying it. And you can tell them to shut up, but that's not a prefrontal lobe thing. So this part of the brain is pretty important. It helps you to put yourself in another person's place and imagine how they might feel in certain respects. So here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to try to do. Try to imagine that you have this prefrontal lobe. I'm going to call it because we already call it. Like when you say, I'm going to lose it. What are you saying? Pretty soon my prefrontal lobe is going to go offline and my filter is going to stop working and I'm going to say things to you that I really don't want to say because I'm going to lose it. So I call this it. And it is we all lose it. You get really bad, it goes offline. With bipolar, when a person's manic, it goes offline, and the thinker speeds up real fast. So when a person's manic, don't argue with them. They're really brilliant. Their processing speed is 10 times higher than you are and they'll win. But they really don't see the bigger picture. They can't understand your feelings at that point because they have no ability. So imagine you lose all that. Imagine you lose, you can't regulate your emotions. Your emotions are magnified. Great joy, but great dread also. You can't censor what you're thinking. See, everybody here has private thoughts. You might look up here and go, oh, what a jerk. But you probably wouldn't say it. If you're manic, you're going to say it. See? Because your private thoughts roll off the tip of your tongue, which usually gets you in big trouble. And usually what you're saying is true. And people really don't like that at all. You lose your ability to prioritize. You have 6 things to do. What's more important? Well, now you don't know because this is offline. You just do the first thing that comes up. And your boss comes over and says, what are you doing that for? That's not important. Do this over here. But you didn't know that. You don't see the bigger picture of things. It's like you can't really be there because you have racing thoughts. You ever watch CNN? You got your main event there, and then you got your stock ticker tape, and your weather ticker tape, and your news ticker tape. So when you're talking to somebody who's manic, they're looking at you, and you can tell they're not totally there with you because they're reading their ticker tapes. You don't see the consequences of your actions. You can't have empathy. It's not like you don't care about other people. It's just not there for that moment. You can't put things in perspective because you have no perspective. It's just all a bunch of details. When you get depressed, when this goes out, see, this is the part of you that sees the bigger picture of things. So a person might wake up depressed that has a prefrontal lobe online, and they go, oh man, I'm depressed again today. Hope this goes away soon. But you can see you weren't always depressed. You're not always going to be depressed. Bipolar depression is everything looks bleak. It seems like it always was bleak, and it always will be bleak. So everything is right in that moment of time right there. You don't see a time span. And you say to this person, well, you felt that way last month too, but then you had a pretty good month. And they'll probably look at you and go, no, I only thought I was happy last month. But they were. So imagine losing all that, and then it comes back, and then it goes away, and it goes back. You wake up one morning, it's not there. You didn't get enough sleep last night, so now it's gone. You don't feel like yourself. But sometimes it's really there. And sometimes you're perfectly okay. You think, now I can get on with my life. And then when it goes offline, sometimes you do stupid things. things that you really, it's not you and you wouldn't do those things if it was online, but it's not. And then you wake up the next morning and here you are suffering the consequences of what you did. And the remorse, like, oh, geez. And I've seen this so many times, kids in school, have a mood swing and smack another friend. Now their friend doesn't want to be friends anymore. And the next day it's like, I can't believe I did that. The remorse comes out. Because up here is where you get the remorse, right in the front. The conscience. And the thing is, like with diabetes, we have insulin. And for most people that have diabetes, that makes them normal. For bipolar, there's not too many medications that work for people 100%. Some people, there's a couple of them that might work and they might have a pretty normal life for a while. Most other medications, you have weight gain, you have all kinds of side effects. They're not great. So in this time, in our history, as far as our knowledge about bipolar disorder, it's very minimal. And as far as our understanding of bipolar and the medication of bipolar, it's crappy medication. Sometimes for some people, lithium for some people, Lamictal for some people. Other than that, other medicines lose their effectiveness over time. Some of them put on 50 pounds. So, I liked a couple things that Brian said it just depicts. He says, I do not have fluctuations of happiness. I'm either really angry or some shade of angry, or I'm really depressed. Now that's probably when he's symptomatic of bipolar disorder. It's not like bipolar is going to be there 100% of the time. Hopefully. Remorse. 4 words to your 17-year-old self. Don't fight security guards. It's remorse. And then he talks about the weird kid. Speculation among the family is maybe it was about him. And then he says about the weird kid, I should have helped him. How? How would you help that weird kid? Can you help that weird kid? Realistically. Medication? Maybe. Maybe it wouldn't work so well also. So, as much as you might see ego, arrogance, and entitlement with some people that are supposed to help people with bipolar disorder, they don't know for sure what's going to be there. They just don't know. My experience of Brian is that it's just that prefrontal lobe offline, and it's back. He shows up and he's like, great. And then it's offline. He doesn't, and then it comes back. It's offline, back, offline, back. What a hell of a life that would be, don't you think? So that's what it's like to have bipolar disorder. I hope someone else comes up and has more of a sense of humor about it. But that wouldn't be me. Thanks.
At this time, if there are others who would like to share, please come forward or stand where you are.
Hello. Check, check. So, Brian was definitely my best friend. And I'm sad. Super, super sad. That's what I want to say is I'm sad. But I wanted to say about this one cool time we were on our way to a plumbing school that I basically told him, I want to be a plumber. He said, I just want to do something that makes money. I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it. But I'm super lazy. And the person that got me into it is Brian, who is not lazy at all. He was my role model, to be honest, when it came to getting your stuff done, financially being okay. Everything that I was bad at, he was good at. And I looked up to him a lot, but he was my best friend. And we were on our way to school, and he was sad. Prefrontal, I love that I'm after Jay, after, Mr. Davis, and it just makes me think that moment was special. So he was sad, and we were on our way, and I thought, man, there's nothing I can tell this guy that would make him feel better. We're on our way to school, that's positive. We just hit the gym, that's positive. What can you be sad about? And so I started to freestyle rap. And it brought Brian to life, man. He was, throwing in ad-libs for me, going, yo, hey, yo, that's so hot. I go, wow, what a man, just a little freestyle rap and change someone's life. Shout out to all of his favorite musicians. And I just want to say all the fun times that I had with Brian, because I just came back from Arizona. I've lived here my whole life. And he was so special to me, guys. I saw him all the time. And so the one time when I first came back, he was telling me, you're gonna go back to just, throwing trash. I was a trash man. He's just gonna be a trash man again. And I'm like, nah, I'm gonna do something. And that's when I realized Brian was a really good friend, because he got me into the plumbing, and I noticed he was a little different. More of the prefrontal stuff Jay was talking about. And basically every day I was with him, it was awesome. And I got to thinking, everybody likes Brian. Everybody does. Nobody doesn't like Brian. Everybody likes him. Even the people he doesn't like, they like him. You know what I mean? And it's because of that ultimate joy that he was talking about. And what was it? We were at the gym, and I was saying how, man, it's hard to get to the gym. It's hard to do better. It's hard to be at plumbing. It's hard to do everything you have to. And he goes, hey man, you're doing better than me. While all the time I'm thinking he's doing better than me. And I said that to him. He was like, man, that's awesome. Nobody's ever said that to me. And I was like, dang. Man, this guy, man, he's got it all together. He thinks I got it together. And I'm sure you all feel that way. You think, oh, that guy has it together, that guy has it together. And it's like, he's really thinking you guys have it together. And it just let me think about being thankful. And I'm really thankful I've known Brian. And I can see from all the faces here that everybody liked Brian. And that's all I have to say is that, I'm sad and I love Brian. And I know we all do too.
What's good, everybody? My name is Dominic, who you all don't know me. I wrote a little something for this. The loss of the life of a young man full of promise has lost the entire world, but it hurts worse for the people who love them most and have the pleasure of calling them friend, brother, son, nephew, and grandson. To me, I lost my brother. No, we weren't blood related. However, since the day we became friends freshman year, I will always say he will always be my brother. I know you battled demons for mental illness, but you were never alone. I was there for you not because I had to, because I wanted to. I find comfort in knowing you're finally at peace, even though it hurts. This is a hard pill to swallow. I can't call you and hear your voice again. I can't hear your loud laugh or see that goofy smile. We know you tried your best to keep going and not let any of us down. And even now, you didn't disappoint any of us. We are still proud of you. Nobody is perfect, and that's what makes us human. I didn't know the last time I saw you that night would be the last time I saw you again. I won't forget our last beer, our last chill chest on your new couch, or the last text we sent. You told me you loved me and that I was your best friend. I will hold on to those memories forever. We never know when tomorrow is the end of anyone's physical life, so show your love while you can and never leave things unsaid. I believe your soul is still with us because love will always connect us to you from the other side. I find some comfort knowing you're watching over us. And this isn't the end. I won't say goodbye. I will say until we meet again, big fella. The pain we feel today, it may never fade. Grief is complicated, but we cannot allow our grief to overshadow who you were as a person. Your legacy is not how you left us, but how you loved us. I selfishly wish that love was enough to keep you with us. We may never make sense of why you are gone, so we must hold on to the good times and feel grateful we were able to share them together. This is one of the hardest days of my life, and public speaking isn't my favorite, but for you, Beyer, I had to do it. I know this is tough for everyone, so we must not forget him and remember all the good times he's done for us, and all the good he was doing for himself, and all the happy memories we were all lucky enough to share with him. No regrets at all. Brian is flying high now, and he is free. And as Beyer would say, full sends only.
Morning, everybody. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Josh. I can't say that I'm going to be as funny as the people before me, or maybe not quite as positive. However, I was at a passing about 2 years ago. I served in the Marine Corps, something I'm very proud of. And during my last 2 months, I lost a Marine into a car accident. When I attended his funeral, I had somebody bring something to me that at first I thought was pretty depressing, but then he brought it to a light that I thought was pretty motivational, and so I thought I would share it with everybody here. This person was elderly. It was actually his grandmother, and she told me that through time, sometimes memories may fade. We might not remember their voice, we might not remember what they were wearing that day, and frankly, we might not remember the exact words that they said to us. But instead, I was told to look at the things that they had taught us. And if I was able to implement the things that they had taught us, that I would be able to live the rest of my life knowing that I had them by my side. They influenced my decisions and that they helped me grow. And that way, throughout my entire life, I could say that they were always with me. There was no question about that. There was no question as to any part of it. They taught me. So for me, Brian taught me that passion truly is a true motivator. He was passionate about every single thing that he did. Whether he was passionately upset at a bad call from a ref, or passionately joyous about winning against Wilson, he was passionate. And people held on to that. People clung to that and it motivated them. You might be able to feel that pain through them or feel that joy through them. And he taught me that being passionate is truly a heartfelt way to live. Something that can motivate not only myself, but the ones around me, the people close to me. And so that's a lesson that I'm going to hold on that Brian taught me. And I would like to challenge every person here to think about the things that Brian has taught them. So that way you too can live knowing that every step that you take from here on, you know he's by your side. Thank you.
I was a good friend of Brian's. He obviously had a big passion for sports, obviously, as Mr. Davis said, but it's funny, when we were little kids, even at this time, he was really competitive and played baseball together. He was on the Colorado Rockies and he was pitching, and I was on the other team, and the umpire was squeezing him a little bit, the strike zone, and he had a meltdown. He walked in, a couple of guys, a run or two got in, and threw his glove down and smacked the dirt and ran off in the woods, and it was funny, even at that age, he was that competitive. Another story, he'd always try to make you laugh. He always wanted to see you smile. And I remember I was in the in-school suspension room, actually. I won't say why, but when you have lunch, there's a window that's shared there. They keep the blinds down and try to, keep you doing your work. So Brian is
banging on the glass and screaming while he's at lunch, and little does he know it's completely silent in the other room. You can't really hear it, but you can hear someone smacking on the glass. And it was Mrs. Templin that was the teacher, and she rips the blinds up and looks at Brian, and his face is priceless, man. But he brought a lot of smiles, and I won't forget him for that. Thank you.
Hi, for some of you who don't know me, my name is Allie. I didn't know Brian for a very long time, but I wanted to say that Eileen, you raised an amazing, amazing son. He was always someone that you could go to in a really hard time. Especially this year, my mom was battling with cancer, and there was nothing that I could be able to go talk to him about. So I really want to say thank you so much, and I'm really sorry.
Hi. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tracy. Brian and I spent a lot of time together, or a good amount of time. I would like to think those are very monumental years for me to spend with him. I can't help but think of not just one story that Brian and I had, and not just one memory, because they kind of all flow together. He touched a lot of people's lives, and I don't think I'll ever think about him and not smile and remember all the things that he taught me. But he also introduced me to the person that I started my family with, and I think that in that sense, he lives on to me, and for that I'm forever grateful for him. And I know that you and I have had some conversations throughout the years, my mom as well, and I don't think that I'll never not be thankful for your family and for your love and generosity that you've shown towards us in time of need. And I'll forever remember Brian for that and thank him, and he'll always have a place in my heart as one of my biggest brothers. And I would like to think that when I do get married and things happen with my daughter, that he's going to be right there for her. So thank you.
In meeting with the family, I said, if anybody wants to share anything and doesn't feel that they can stand up, write it down, and I will gladly read it for you. His mom took that to heart, and she sent it to me this morning, about 4 pages worth. So those of you who know her know she likes to talk. She wrote, in January of 2015, Brian was newly out of the Cairn Foundation and was feeling early relief from the struggles with K2 addiction and secrets that kept him sick. He was being brave and trying a new way of life, meeting new people, opening himself to different ideas. He's living in a house with other guys, trying to stay sober, and it was a very stressful experience. One morning, as he left his bedroom, a resident was lying outside of his door in a state of overdose. Brian called 911, and the man survived. He wanted to get out of there faster than anyone would advise. He was struggling to give up doing things all on his own way and to accept direction. He wanted to come home to live again ASAP, but did not want any limits placed on him. We had a long drive to meet one of Tom's dear friends, Dana. When he's rushing to move on was the main topic. He wanted his freedom and admitted that he was impatient, starting to go against direction that was being given to him. He stated he longed to be free from everything that was holding him down and back. He didn't want to work for a fast food chain. He wanted to be his own boss. And that's when I told him the story of the bird's nest in the parking garage of the doctor's building. At some point in more recent history, I had taken his 2 younger brothers for their well visit at the pediatrician's. We had returned to my minivan around the time of all the doctor's offices were closing, and it started to be a steady stream of cars circling to get out. Near our vehicle, up on the cement beam across the driver's path, was a bird's nest with baby birds. As Brian's brothers were getting into the car, a bird dropped out of the nest right into the path of traffic. I motioned to the driver to stop while I went to the back of the car, grabbed a towel to pick up the bird, So I remember hearing that when a young one is touched, the mother would not accept it back. So then the problem, how to put it back into the nest. I decided to maneuver the minivan into the path of traffic and step up onto the seat and somehow climb onto the roof where I placed the bird. At that point, Brian says, "Oh, Mom, I could see you so doing that." Put the bird in the nest and got down to the ground, and the bird fell out again, right into the path of traffic. I picked it up again and put it back in, and it flapped in its little nest and jumped right back out and fell to the ground where it flapped and flapped, moving around but not getting very far. It wanted to flinch. It didn't matter if its wings weren't strong enough yet or there were cars whizzing by. It wanted to try then, to go then. I picked the mom trying to say, "You're not ready, listen to me." I remember thinking that it probably blamed its mother for building the nest above the area where the cars drive through. Meanwhile, I traffic backed up through the whole garage. At this point, I picked up the bird in the towel, put it in a small box, and drove away thinking, where can I go for advice? I started heading home, and Moldy Forest was on the way. Decided to drive up to the main office and see if I could talk with one of their experts. The boys and I brought the tiny bird inside and showed it to the person. She said that it wouldn't be wise to try to care for the bird, that it would likely die if we tried to confine it and feed it what it didn't want to eat. So she said the best thing was to take it back and put it back in the nest one more time. If it jumped out, then I should leave it and fend for itself. It was after rush hour at this point and thought, maybe if it jumped out while it was on the ground overnight, maybe somehow its wings would strengthen from flapping and it would be strong enough to fly by morning. So back to the garage we went. Meanwhile, the boys were complaining of hunger, and I think I promised to go to McDonald's if they were patient. When we returned to the parking garage, it was all but empty and the sun was starting to go down. I maneuvered the car under the nest, got back up on the roof one more time. This time I didn't even stay for the mom's eulogy. It just leapt right out and started flapping wildly and making noise. I wondered if it was upset. Hitting the ground 3 times from 20 feet had to hurt. If it wasn't squished the first time, maybe it would have just gone and hid somewhere, which is exactly what it did. It flapped and walked over to the wall and seemed like it was trying to jump up on it rather than being trapped on the ground with this crazy lady who might try to rescue it again. I remember being tearful when we left, wondering if it was going to be eaten by some animal before the morning light, but hoping and praying it could find its way. After I got done with the story, Brian paused for a moment and said, "So, you think I'm rushing too fast to have my independence? That I should seek more direction before I seek to make decisions and people to help me allow to learn to really fly?" Precisely. He said, "I'll try, but that's not who I am. I hate feeling trapped in something I don't really want. I want to be around people of my choosing and still have my own path. How do you know what is best for me?" From birth, Brian was strong-willed and exceptionally determined, and I would bet most people who cared about him would say the same, that he stayed the same. As a parent, it's hard to watch, to hold in any kind of consistent expectation for anything. He would challenge consequences with an almost "I dare you, try to control me." From a young age, he would quickly assess situations and the people he was interacting with to determine how he could work the situation to get his way. He was exceptionally intelligent, and his ability to debate was much greater than your average child. We joked to ourselves saying we hoped he'd go through his teens early, and by the time he was a teenager, he would have worked through this rebelliousness. We were wrong. As parents, we were heartbroken that he put us in positions so that he had to leave the nest too soon. As those who knew him well, he remained high-spirited, passionate, and determined. As he matured, though, he would sometimes allow us as parents in one part of his decision-making, or at least allow us to play, like a Monday morning quarterback, talking through his parts of things to avoid history repeating itself. Despite being reactionary and hot-headed, one of his youth basketball coaches specifically made a point to tell us, which it felt very good how unlikely some other kids, Brian was very coachable. He hated to make the same mistake twice, and remained true to him until the end. He wanted to be great at whatever he made his mind to do, yet quickly changing emotions were hard to steer around with his logical plan. At some point in the last few months, there were some topics related to all the transition he was going through. I started to try to reason with him about being patient, taking the time to reflect and heal from what he was going through, and to think about what would be really important to him, and to focus on that rather than what he felt he was losing, and his fears that he couldn't make his life be a life that he would be proud of. He started to say, "Remember the bird," and he stopped me from proceeding with a lighthearted tone in only the way Brian could. "I know, Mom, I remember. Please don't tell me again. I got this." After his death, the bird story kept coming to me, as I wished he had given me one more opportunity to talk things through with him, reason out what was going on and the likely consequences, remind him that he had so much going for him, to not make a hasty decision based on his strong feelings in the moment. The Saturday before he died, we were on a long car ride to get him a new bed. I knew how distraught he was, and I tried to cheer him up by listing all the things I was proud of with him and all his potential to create life the way he wanted. He didn't let me get far. He said, "I know, Mom, everybody's trying to tell me the same thing. I have to feel it for myself." Later, I did get to share with him that he was somebody who didn't want to be alone or do things alone in his whole life. When little, he always wanted to be in the same room with me. He wanted brothers. He wanted frequent sleepovers and friends on vacations. He longed to have a significant other again and was very afraid he couldn't do this alone. Told me how many of his friends were trying to help him through, spending as much time with him. Little did we know until after he died how many people interacted with him the last weeks, days, and hours, spending time with him, reasoning with him, not to act on impulse, encouraging him that he would get through. He just didn't have his parents' nest anymore. He had made friends who had invited him to their nests, and he, in his new apartment, had just created a great nest for his friends to come to. We all wished he could have stopped from taking his last steps. Compared to other times, he did not give us the opportunity to talk him out of anything. His decisions were fast and furious. He wouldn't wait for anyone to join him in his plan. He wanted freedom from the deep pain of feeling like he was losing everything. His resilience was gone. His tank was empty. And he left with the courage and determination to make his own destiny. He needed to transcend his fears and limitations being imposed on him. He just wanted to fly. Don't feel too bad. Gladys was later than yours. From his father. I have three things that I want to say to you today. One about Brian and his friends, one about Brian and his family, and maybe one about you. One day when they were still in high school, Brian and his friend Jordan Santos had the idea to take the cinnamon challenge. The challenge was to swallow a teaspoonful of cinnamon Simple enough. Well, Brian went first. He carefully measured the spoon and put it in his mouth. Immediately, he started gagging, coughing, drooling, and several other nasty things. Actually says that, I didn't edit his words. Jordan watched for a second, then carefully measured a spoonful and put it in his own mouth. This told me two things about Jordan. Again, these are his words, not mine. One, he's not too bright. And two, he was laughing with Brian, not at him. Since Brian's passing, I've heard that he had a large number of friends who were laughing, crying, and playing in short experience of life with Brian. What an amazing blessing you all were to him. Thank you. The family of a child with bipolar disorder experiences many challenges. Brian's mother was constantly researching the best medications, the best types of therapy, the best therapists. We were on the move, getting him to see the people he needed to see and keeping in contact with school and other activities to see how Brian was doing on yet another medication. I don't remember how many times we were called to school, how many challenges he posed to scout leaders or sport coaches, or how many things he asked to leave because he was so disruptive. Home life was very often difficult as we tried to get Brian to comply while protecting his brothers from as much of his rage as possible. All this to say that I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to hear good stories about Brian. Since his passing, we have heard from so many how kind, funny, and loyal Brian was. Even the young lady who cuts his hair on Wednesday posted how Brian said many nice things about his family. We know Brian loved us, and it's nice to hear the positive things from others. After something like this, it is normal for each of us to do some self-reflecting, to wonder if we did all we could have to help. If maybe there wasn't something else we could have done to prevent this. Healthy self-reflection is good. However, it can go to extremes. When you begin to feel that this was your fault, that you failed or were not a good friend, I think you have gone too far. In his last 13 hours, Brian was seen by 3 mental health professionals who knew him, his circumstances, and were sensitive to the signs of suicide. I had an early lunch with him. Several of his friends were with him throughout the day. We all thought he was doing better. Not great, but better. He was only alone for about his last hour. The other hours were filled with people who loved and were encouraging him. Brian was too tired of trying to fit his square peg into a world built for round holes. If you still feel responsible, please listen. As Brian's father, I forgive you. Thank you. Sometimes there are no words to explain. No magical words to make things better. So when our words are choked, when we struggle with our own thoughts, we can turn to God. When our words are jumbled and when we are silent, God is none. It is in that silence that God intercedes. Silence in prayer, in silence in anger, in silence in helplessness or hopelessness, God intercedes. The reading from Romans later on says, likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know how to pray as we ought, but that very Spirit intercedes with sighs too deep for words. This is one of those events. When our words are choked with tears, the Spirit intercedes for us with sighs. I need to make one thing perfectly clear this morning, this afternoon. This was not God's intent. God's desire was not to end a life so young. Yet this event and others, we beg questions. We want to know why. As a parent myself, I struggle with that question. I ask the question, why God? Because I want to understand. But I don't have an answer for you this morning. As a pastor who has studied the Word of God for almost 20 years, I don't have words to explain it away. Yet while I can't answer why, I have some answers, I hope. I believe God did not purposely seek a tragic end so he could bring Brian home. I know this is not punishment. I know this is not a test to see how strong a father's faith is, or a result of a mother's lack of prayer, or action, or inaction. We do not live in a perfect world. There is trauma and there is heartache. Yet I also know and trust that God is big enough for our questions, for our anger, for our tears, for our pain. Because God knows loss. God knows the loss of a child. A child who knew loss of a close and dear friend. It is part of our life. So everyone was asking why the rock? Rocks are heavy, they're sharp, they're uncompromising. Yet in these pieces of rock we see brokenness, we see harshness, we see pain, we see love cut off or a statue destroyed, futures fractured. We can see how we're feeling in these rocks, and yet they were once part of something larger. To become pieces, they had to be broken by immense force, yet are still part of a whole. We can feel helpless, hopeless, We can think back and cry, what if, or if I only had. And in our helpless and in our grief, the weight of not this rock, but the weight of heavier rocks can weigh us down. But that weight can also ground us. Here to share with you the language of what if is less. Because we can't go back. We can't change the past. Yet the what ifs could still weigh us down. As his father said, there is nothing here anyone could have done to have stopped this tragic event. Simon Critchley wrote, when someone dies by suicide, those bound by love often experience a shadow of the pain and anxiety that preceded the death they grieve, the guilt. Guilt because in search to understand why we are so connected that we make ourselves the first accused. We continue to search for answers. And it can set in the past and abolish the future. While Brian struggled with his past, and his struggles overwhelmed him, while we grieve for what was lost, while we struggle to understand, we struggle to understand why Brian and others face this sense of pain and despair, felt that to die was the only solution, making all other solutions unthinkable. This is a challenge that has grown harder by the stigma of silence. That allows suicide as an option to grow in the dark corners and isolated minds. It's the silence that has to be broken. We can break that silence. We can break the darkness as this light. Though it seems fragile and small, it still burns. With it, there is possibility. There is still shadow of what is half known, half understood. And in that small light, there's warmth. There's hope. With God comes light. God's promise of light in the darkness, so powerful, darkness will not overcome it. That light encourages us to remember, to live the passion that Brian taught us. To hear that laughter and those good times and share them not individually or isolated, but as those gathered together. We are bearers of that light. In the light of God, we hope for what we do not see and for what we cannot comprehend. In the midst of darkness, God's light breaks into the world. Relationship, through friendship. And I heard it over and over again, not just this morning, but last night, through love. Which is why this is so difficult and painful. Love is a human condition, which means that none of us own ourselves, that we have and are shared together. But in that love, there are tears. The pain and agony of loss can continue, and probably will. Perhaps ebbing over time, perhaps not. Perhaps impacting us when we least expect it. And finally, I specifically asked for this rose because if you'll notice, I asked that the thorns would be left on it. In the midst of beauty, there can be pain. There can be a sense of trying to protecting what is important. Yet thorns still pierce. In the midst of all of it, there is still hope. In our reading for this morning from Romans, we heard nothing can separate us from God's love. I was one of them. I was one of them to have a final conversation with Brian through Facebook on Wednesday night. I had seen some of the stuff that he had posted, and I reached out just checking in. He asked about reconnecting with God through prayer. He said, I'm not much of a church guy anymore, but I want to start praying more, trying to reconnect with God, because I've never felt more far away from Him. I talked to him about getting coffee. His response to me was, sure, how about Friday or Monday? While he felt far away from God, I would ask that you hear these words again. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. As we leave here today, I encourage you, talk with one another. Share your memories, laugh, cry, embrace, build relationships, speak. Reach out, bring light to your struggles and your fears, your worries. You are gathered here because you are a testament to a willingness to be uncomfortable, to be connected with someone who meant a great deal to you. You are the hope that I see. You are here to challenge each other now and for the future. Not to be helpless, to let those who are here lift you up and be present with you in your loss. To help you carry your weight. Until that day, maybe not this week or this year or years from now, when that weight, when that rock, when that harshness goes beyond and allows you to be grounded. Because packed tight together, those rocks that you have, they form a foundation for newness. Amen.
You might just sing along if you'd like to. Amazing Grace, my chains are broken.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. Lord has promised, the Lord has promised good to me. His word, my hope secure. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. The earth shall soon dissolve like snow, the sun forever to shine. But God, who called me here below, will be forever mine. Will be
Mighty and gracious God, we come before you in our grief, in our sorrow, in our anger, in our questioning. In the silence when we don't know the words. Lord, be with us in these moments, in these days and weeks and months ahead as we struggle. Help us reach out and cry out and scream out. Be with us in our pain. Yet help us to see the hope in the world and in those around us. Gracious and faithful God, hear our prayer. God, we struggle with things we cannot understand. We struggle to know why, and we wait for answers that seem not to come. Lord, be with us. Guide us. Help us to grow together, knowing that you are with us always. Gracious and faithful God, hear our prayer. God, we thank you. That we knew Brian. That we knew his passion, that we knew his presence, that we knew his friendship and his love. And the struggles we have ahead of us, help us to know that you are with us even now. Gracious and faithful God, hear our prayer. God, as we go forth from this place, help us to continue to share and uplift those memories, that joy, that promise. Help us to speak and to reach out so that others may not know this pain and this trauma in their lives. Gracious and faithful God, hear our prayer. God, that you lost a child. You sent him into this world so that we may have new life, so that we may have hope, so that we may have a promise for what comes next, for new life in you. Lord, help us to remember that life, that new life that is to come through your Son, and hope for those days ahead. And to pray as your Son taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see from where we began. No story. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. I'll tell you when I see you again. First you both go out your way in the vibe is feeling strong to a small, turn to a friendship turn to a bond, and that bond will never be broken, the love will never get lost. And what does become trust in the line will never be crossed, established it on our own when that line had to be drawn, and that line is what we need, so remember you when I'm gone. I do not talk about having no feelings, all that we got. Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side. And now you're going to be my last one. Let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every breath as you go. And every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
To you, O Lord, we commend the soul of Brian, your servant. In the sight of this world, he is now dead. In your sight, may he live forever. In your goodness, grant him everlasting peace through Christ our Lord. Amen.
He's black and blue.
let's do a nice Eagles chant. Eagles chant? Alright. Can anyone help me come up here? If you Eagles fan, come up here please. Help me sing this. I want all my friends up here. That's okay. This is what Ireland wants, so let's do this right. Does anyone want to start it off?
E.